All right, Tracy, I sent it to you.
All right. I'm waiting on it now. Do a send and receive. It didn't come through yet. Oh, there it is.
Well, I made you host so you can move the people back again.
Thank you.
Come through.
What was that, Tracy?
All right, it's posted.
Thank you.
You're welcome. See you later.
Thanks, Trace.
You're welcome.
So Olivia, we ready to go? We got a quorum?
Come here.
Yes, sir. You have 5.
All
Yeah.
right. Mr. Raymond, we have verified all of the names of the people that are joining us, and we are ready to go. You may begin, sir. It is now being live streamed. You may begin.
All right, I'd like to call this meeting to order. Please note any comments made by the public are welcome and can be mailed to publiccomment@lsbnme.la.gov. Excuse me. Olivia, please confirm you verified the identity of all tele and video conference participants.
We have, sir.
Is the sound clear and audible to the public and those on tele and video conference?
Yes, sir, it is.
All additions to the executive or public agenda must be made presently, as well as we will no longer make additions to the agenda after the close of the public session. Okay, can we have a roll call and a quorum confirmation? Diana?
I'm trying to get my mouse to work. Okay, and I usually do this in alphabetical order. So let's see if I can do this. Dr. Ugo Azima. Not yet. Sheila Guidry. Yeah. Elizabeth Hamilton. Here. Diana Maradino here. Michael Nolan. Here.
Here.
Raymond Peasany. Gotcha.
Here.
Brett Stafford.
Good morning here.
All right. We have quorum.
Is there
And then
any public, I'm sorry. Is there any public comment, Doctor?
None at this time, sir.
All right, we'll move on to,
If you let me share the screen, I will go ahead and put the agenda up for you.
thank you, sir.
You can share, Dr. Van.
Thank you. Okay, can everybody see the agenda? Is it big enough for you?
Can you make it a little bit bigger? It's too narrow.
I'll see what I can do. Give me a second. Let's see. How about now?
Okay. That's good.
Okay.
All right, we'll move on to old business, approval of the minutes from June 12th, 2023. That was included in your packet. Did everybody have a chance to review those? They have a motion to accept the minutes as presented.
Sheila made motion, or Sheila got a question.
Sheila? Sheila?
Question. Have some comments or questions on the Act number 393, which I think we discussed somewhat at the last meeting. So would that come into old business right now, or do we want to wait till the end of the meeting?
Well, first we have to accept the minutes and you can talk about it whenever y'all wanted to.
All right, do we have a motion to accept? I think they're reading.
Can you hear me make the motion? Except
We have a-
Nolan
Yes,
first.
Nolan. Do we have a second?
Second.
Sheila, second. All right, is there any discussion? All in favor of approving the minutes as presented?
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay, the motion carries.
And there are no public comments at this time, sir.
Thank you, sir. Revisions to the rules and regs, again, we're hitting a snag. I think, we can discuss that on the new business, if that's okay, Doctor, with, Senate Bill 201. Or do we have
Okay.
to discuss that now?
Well, let's talk about Senate Bill 201 and the act that accompanied it. Unfortunately, that is a system that we wish they had in the past, but we don't have any choice. I think the key for us to understand is that that particular bill by Senator Hewitt changes the way we do things for these meetings. One of the things it says is that we can do in-person meetings, or we can do all electronic meetings. The problem with doing in-person meetings is it costs the agency a lot more. The problem with doing the electronic meetings is they will no longer allow me to pay you a per diem. And the problem with doing these meetings is we have to do them during a time when the agency is open, because we are restricting overtime. And if we did it on a Saturday or Sunday, we would have to have a place for the public to be with the meeting. We'd have to have a guard, we'd have to have staff. And so the cost is prohibitive with the overtime. So if you want to do in-person meetings, it would have to be done during the office business days. And it would have to be in a situation where you understand that we couldn't pay any overtime. And it is still more cost effective for the board to do it this way. However, I cannot pay you, if you don't attend in person, I cannot pay you a per diem. That's the law. There's nothing to do with what we want. You know, we were doing it before, we were coming out cheaper, but that's the situation that the law puts us in.
I guess, does this law supersede our Practice Act, Doctor, where we have in there where the members would be paid a per diem for attendance of these meetings?
Yes, sir. I think Ms. Wilton would maybe make a comment about the most recent expression of state law supersedes other ones, but I think I'll let her talk to you about that. Ms. Wilton?
Yes, unfortunately, we can't be, our rules can't be in derogation of the law. So to the extent they provide for something that's not present in the law, it's not enforceable. And I will add to what Dr. Collada said, this was a quid pro quo in the development of this, which is meant to be a cost savings across the state. There were opponents who believed that all meetings of any public bodies, including committees, should be in person, voice vote, everyone there, and the public made available to be present. That is no longer feasible in the current economic or technological climate. It just doesn't make sense. So in order to appease those persons and to generate cost savings for the state, to demonstrate the balance of competing state interests between the public's right to know and the need to be fiscally and technologically efficient, that per diem for people who, for the bodies that are meeting remotely, was removed. So we can't be in derogation of the law with our rules because it's unenforceable. And it's against the public policy that's behind the latest expression of the legislative will.
Okay, can I say something here? Discussion.
Yes.
Raymond, am I good?
Yes, ma'am, I'm sorry.
Okay, I did go through it, and my take home messages from it when I read through it was we were not going to discriminate against anybody with disabilities with ADA. That was, it looked to appear to me the original purpose, that if somebody with disabilities could not attend based on those disabilities, based on that transportation maybe issue, or couldn't get a caregiver to get them to where they needed to go, these individuals would always be allowed to attend any meeting electronically. And then it does say the committee has the ability to decide whether we meet in person or not in person. But if you read on, it says no more than 1/3 of the meetings shall be held via electronic means, unless we are dealing with somebody which has a disability and cannot meet in those meetings. So it wasn't and Dr. Van, I heard everything that you said. It is more cost efficient to do Zoom, and we've got to stay within a budget and can't be overtiming and all of that. But it doesn't mandate. And when I read it, it also says if you had 3 people, my interpretation, that wanted to be in New Orleans to meet, and the other 6 or 7 joined by Zoom, you can do that too. You can have a hybrid meeting.
Well, you can't have a hybrid meeting, and the 3 meetings, 30% of the meetings is related to different public bodies, not advisory committees. That's how we carved that out, so that we could retain the ability of advisory committees to meet all of the time by Zoom. It's not my call. It's Dr. Collada's call. It's the board's call as to how they spend the money. But that's with all due respect, that's an incorrect statement. Advisory committees are not required to hold any meetings in person, and hybrid meetings are not allowed in terms of a quorum. Now, if you want to have a meeting where some members participate by Zoom, you just can't take any action, and you can't take a vote. You essentially have no meeting. You have a discussion, but you have no meeting.
Okay, so my question is, are we going off of Senate Bill 201? Are we going off of Act 408? Are we missing it to pull out what we think we need to use? I mean, we were told Senate Bill 201 is now in effect and has to be put into play. So that's what I read. And I've highlighted, and I can go back and read again. Are we going off of Act 408 that came out in, I don't know, 2022?
No, we're going by 201, which is the most current expression of the legislative will. And in 201, which became Act 393, I think is the proper number, it basically says that the advisory committees are carved out and they do not have to have in-person meetings. They can do all of their meetings by Zoom, okay? The difference is we still have to have, and we have the facilities right now. Miss Olivia is actually in the boardroom. And if somebody were to walk in and say, I want to come to the meeting, they would be escorted to the boardroom where they could attend the meeting. We had to have the anchor location. We have to have the ability for the public to physically attend. And so that puts us in a position that we could only do these during a time of the open business and avoid payment of overtime for the agency.
Dr. Collada, can
Yes.
you show me where it specifically says that the advisory committees have to meet electronically all the time? When it's
No, we can. We have the option. Unlike
okay,
the regular,
because it says
we have the
may,
option.
may.
Yeah, we may, and we elect to do that as much as we can because it saves us money and it makes it more convenient. People don't have to travel, take our time off from work and that kind of stuff and miss work. So we thought it would be better to do as many as we can. But again, we have a carve out that we have the ability to do all of ours by Zoom, provided we have the anchor location, a moderator at that anchor location, and have the ability of letting the public attend. Now, if you guys want to do this, understand you can have these meetings, but I think out of consideration to you all as members, they'll have to be on a weekday, which means you'll generally miss part of a day traveling, most of the day of the meeting. You'll miss, most of you all are working and you would miss work. That's fine with me. Again, I understand your situation. And, you know, we would have, unfortunately, the 90-mile limit. So if you came from, you know, Shreveport, I could only reimburse you 90 miles each way.
Well, in the past, since 1984, we've always met during the week on a Monday. We travel in on a Sunday. And
that's fine with me. You can do that.
Miss work.
Y'all can miss Monday's work. That's fine with me. I don't care. But again, I have to be following all of the rules of reimbursement to the T because we're trying to keep the cost down as much as we can.
I understand that. The part that
I think we have to discuss that at Monday's meeting with the board too, as far as the budgetary considerations, Dr. Collada.
I do. I think we will. I will make sure it's on the agenda.
okay, on Act 393,
I'm sorry, can I interrupt? Dr. Cloud, there is one person in the waiting room. I'm not sure if this is a member of the public or if it is Dr. Azima, but I'm adding them in right now.
Okay, add him in.
I am.
And get verification.
Is it?
Mike, we'll let you go after Sheila.
I'm trying to see the person's name.
Dr. Seaman, is that you?
Yes, it's me. It's me.
Well, it's your name is Kamish Oggs, which did not make sense. We wanted to verify that it is you.
Oh, yeah.
I will change your name now.
Yeah,
I
we're
should
going to
probably-
change your name.
You're good
Okay,
to go.
yes.
then.
Thank you, guys. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Thank you, doctor.
That's my fantasy football. I'm the league manager.
Well, unfortunately, fantasy football is not recognized by the board.
Okay, Sheila, yep.
okay,
Any further discussion?
yes, the other thing I wanted to call to attention, and I may be confused about, but on 393 under line 29, it says the provision of this section shall not apply to the following groups. And I mean, it goes down to 25 different groups that none of this applies to. So they will all get paid to have their meetings wherever they want, when they want. So none of this applies to none of those other groups.
That's correct. That's our legislature for you.
Yeah, that seems quite unfair to me. And, you know, we work hard to protect the respiratory therapists in this state. And, you know, we're not out to rip money off of anybody. But, you know, I think to be fair, they're asking a bit much out of everyone, especially, I mean, not even paying $50 for a Zoom meeting. That's ridiculous. You know, we miss work for this time and they won't even give you $50. Give me a break. You know, it's ridiculous.
I understand. I sympathize with you. I wish I could change it. But again, it's the law that was passed and we have to deal with it. And I think that there'll be some other people that come, and there's a possibility if there's some modification bills introduced, we can amend them. But the board is very, very reticent to get involved in legislation these days. And so all I can tell you is that is the way it is at this moment. And we understand your concerns and we will express them to the board.
Okay, because the bottom line is, regardless of what any of that says, we still can do it. We still can meet in person.
Yes, but again, it's going to be more time away from your families and your home. That's the only thing I can tell you. And like I said, if you come from Shreveport, yeah, I can only pay you 90 miles each way.
Mhm, mhm.
And I'm trying to make it as reasonable as I can, balancing the cost to the agency, the fact that we're trying desperately not to give a fee increase to everybody. The board is very recalcitrant about giving a fee increase. We are spending reserves. I'm trying to keep the costs down. And again, it's kind of like one of those situations where it's a whack-a-mole and we do the best we can. And I'm happy to make it work for you all any way you want. You can always meet on Monday here, except the Monday of the board meeting, obviously.
Right.
But again, I could only pay you travel 90 miles each way. And again, you would be away from your family Sunday nights. You would be away from your family, work most of the day. Here, you got an hour and a half meeting and you're back at work. So it's up to y'all. I mean, I'm going to do the very best I can to make you happy. But again, I have no control over what the legislature does.
I understand that. Initially, I guess what upset me is the fact that prior to them putting in this legislation, we were not even aware, so that we could have spoke for ourselves, spoke for advisory committees, against this.
Well, look, the way it was going to work is we would still have it. We got us away so we didn't have to have you come at all. But if y'all want to come, we can do it. They wanted y'all to come for more meetings. Okay. They really did. Oh, you could only do a third. We got us to exempt that. That was the best we could do.
Okay. And when we speak about not raising fees, do y'all recall what's the last year that we raised our fees?
I can look it up, but I don't recall it right off the top.
Because, I mean, if the board can't function on the money that y'all are bringing in for licensure fees, and look, I'm not for raising fees, but you have to do what you have to do to be able to function, I would think.
Well, I understand that. I don't disagree with you, but the board makes those decisions, not you and me. I wish I could tell you there was a better way.
Mm-hmm.
Sheila, I think the last time, and again, don't quote me on this, and Dr. Collada can find it, but I think if he were to go back and look at the year that we combined the license to make it one license,
Mm-hmm.
we came out at $83, and we've been doing that for several years, because when we were split, and again, I don't even think I was on the board, so this is gonna be prior to 2006, 2009. I mean, we're talking about several years. I want to say they came up with the 83 maybe by getting the difference between registry and what the CRT was and brought them together. Because I used to pay a lot more for my registry. But I want to say the fee that we have right now has been in place since we went to one license.
Yeah, it's been a while. It's been quite a while.
Okay, we'll let Mike speak now. He's had his hand up for a while. Mike? You're on mute, Mike.
Mike, can't hear you.
Can you hear me? You hear me? Keeps going back. Can you? Hello?
You're very scratchy and in and out, Mike. You're very scratchy and in and out.
Mike, can you put it in the chat?
Let's see. Can you hear me?
You're still breaking up, Mike.
While Mike works on his technology, let me say to you that the last time you had a fee increase, the fee was set at 2012, and there's been 27.31% inflation since then. Your initial license application is at 125, and your respiratory therapy renewal is at 85.
It was 2012, you said?
Yes, sir, 2012. Ma'am, I'm sorry. Yes, ma'am.
Wow.
All right, so Dr. Collada, while we wait for Mike to, what have other committees been, has anybody been working on their, revising their, rules and regs, and how have they been doing it?
They've been meeting, particularly, I'll give you the example of the OTs. They have monthly meetings. They deal with their regular business, anything from investigations, and then they generally spend an hour at a time going over one section or two sections of time, changing it to reflect modern practice, modern terminology. We've done the same for clinical lab. However, clinical labs changing the nomenclature, that we have to go back and change the law, so the board will be approving that. And we're going to go for a
Can you
law
hear me
change.
now?
Yes, we can.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Mike.
Can anybody hear me? You still can't hear me, huh?
Yes.
This is why an in-person meeting is. Oh, goodness. Can you hear me?
Yes, Mike, we can hear you.
Raymond, earlier, I could hear him, but he could not hear me.
He's calling me now. Let's see. Hey,
Can you hear me, Raymond?
yes, we can hear
Raymond,
you, Mike.
can you-
Go ahead and talk.
Okay, well, I'm gonna hang up on the phone then, if you can hear me. Okay. Technical difficulties is one thing, but that's not the reason why I support live meetings. It just is that you can get more input, and you can get face to face more of what with whatever motion or discussion we're having. So if the choice is to go live meetings, that's where I'm at. As far as travel and reimbursement, does that include lodging, Dr. Van?
Well, if you guys want to do that and the board approves it, we will pay for your lodging. That's correct.
I think I just want to be the voice of doom here. I really don't think the board is going to. I think the board is going to say, well, if you feel the need to meet in person, start your meeting at 11, end it at 2. I mean, I don't know if any of you have attended any of the board meetings recently or looked at them or viewed them or what have you. The board is extremely concerned about the budget. And like I said, I would love nothing more than to sit around a table with all of you and see you and have lunch with you and make these meetings happen. But I think we're not necessarily being as realistic as we need to be, that the expense associated with 6 hotel rooms, 6 mileage reimbursements, et cetera, is, I'm just saying, I'm just being Dr. Doom here. That's going to be tough for the board to justify. I'm just putting that out there so that nobody gets upset if we get pushback. I don't make the choice. I hope that you all get exactly what you want every time you want it. But I don't want you to have unrealistic expectations of the board's reaction to this.
Well, my question is, does the board meet in person or are they doing everything?
The board is required to meet in person.
Zoom?
The board is required to meet in person. They are not exempt like you are.
And how many people on the board?
10. Virtually only 3 of them accept per diems, and the board has different rules for reimbursement than you all have. And the other side of the coin is most of them donate their days and their time. Again, they are in a position to do so. We understand and recognize that you all are not in that position. But again, I'm stuck with the way the law is done, and I can't do much about it.
Is there any more discussion on Senate Bill 201?
So it's my understanding, Dr. Van, that you will present this to the board?
Oh, I will present your request, whatever you clarify it to be. If
Okay.
you all want to meet in person, and the board incur those expenses, that's fine. I'll ask them to do that, and if they say no, I'll let you know. If they say yes, we'll let you know.
Okay, thank you.
Maybe, I don't think it's really necessary for us to meet in person for all 4 meetings a year. Are we just concerned about us meeting to get these rules and regs done? Could we, make that clear to the board that how often do we do these edits? What, every 10 years or so, 8-10 years? Maybe we could just get their approval to go ahead and get this done and then go back to the electronic. Have the option of meeting in person, but letting them know that it's not necessarily going to be that way every time.
And like I said, they'll ask me, well, how is OT doing it? I said, they're meeting monthly and they're getting it done. Again, OT does not try and take the whole bite of the apple at one time. They take sections at a time and edit them, and they meet regularly. So again, we have a pattern that is working, and the board may ask me about that, and I would have to tell them.
Yeah. Yes, sir. They meet 3 times more than we meet.
Well,
If they're
no,
meeting every month.
they only have a requirement for 3 meetings a year, but they chose to do this work this way.
Wow.
They are meeting in excess of their opportunity because they feel it's important to get it done.
Mhm.
And Dr. Van, I all do respect that they are meeting monthly, but if you look at my calendar, Raymond's calendar, when we start, and I'm not saying the rest of them on the committee are not busy, Stafford and all of those, if I don't get something booked 3 months out, the chances of us pulling it together the week before are slim to none. So I don't know that my current position, especially this semester, with teaching 2 classes, seeing 4 to 6 patients a week and doing administrative work would allow me for the monthly. I'm throwing that out there. It would be easier for me to come in and say, this Monday is off, I'm traveling. And in the past, I travel down on Sunday. As soon as the meeting is over with on Monday, I leave, I come back and I hit my responsibilities again. So OT has a blueprint, and I'm not saying that their members are not as busy as me. I am not going to say that, but I am going to say where I am right now, a monthly meeting would be near impossible.
Let me make a suggestion, okay? There is something in between, okay? We do not have to have a public meeting if 1 or 2 of you all, not a committee, not a, how do I want to say, a quorum meets, okay, and puts together some recommended changes, okay? Then when we do meet electronically, we can address those recommended changes, discuss them, and either accept them or modify them. And that way it would expedite the time and probably may preclude the ability of having in-person meetings. But again, this is what we are doing with some of the other committees. And so we're trying to make the technology work to help you all and keep the costs down. But again, if y'all want to meet, I will tell the board that's what you want to do. And if they say once at one time, that's a one time. If they say no, they say no. But again, I will pass that on. But I think that there are ways to do this without having an entire quorum meeting as a public meeting. And we can work together with, maybe 1 or 2 of you all and myself, and we can change this to reflect what you want to change. And then we can present that to the group at the next electronic meeting. So there are a lot of things in between that can be done. I want to offer you the best I can offer you for convenience, your input, and more importantly, for your ability to express yourself, while I'm also addressing the financial constraints that we're operating under.
Can I say this? We've done this a couple of times in the past, and what has made this committee so effective, I think, is that we have representatives from different facets of respiratory therapy. We have the managers, and we have the people that have worked in long-term care, and we have the instructors, the educators. And when we come together as a group, that really works really well when we're coming up with how things should apply to all the different areas. So, to me, I may be foolish here, but OT is OT and PT is PT. But respiratory therapy has quite a few hats, kind of like nurses. So it makes it work when we get together and come up with these changes.
So Dr. Collada, from what I'm gathering from the committee, if you would when's the next board meeting of the physicians?
I will be discussing it with them on Monday.
Okay, I'd appreciate that. And in the meantime, you said if that falls through, then what is considered I know you said not a quorum. So a quorum to us would be 6. So 4 or 5, it would be okay.
I think 3 would be fine.
Ms. Wilton, is that okay with you?
it's the fewer people you have involved, the less justification you have for not meeting by Zoom. Again, I'm the devil's advocate in this discussion. Three people can get together and have a generalized discussion. You can't be a designated committee, subcommittee, etc. Then you become your own public body. If you can get together to generally discuss, and then somebody can come back to the meeting and discuss what you all discussed. I wouldn't do more than 3 because that is just doing board business outside of the open meetings law.
Well, I'm gonna go back to Ms. Hamilton's comment, as a facet, of the different perspectives that we have. I don't think 3 would give us the encompass of everybody's opinion and the changes that need to occur. So we'll wait to hear back from Dr. Collada or you in reference to what the board has to say, and then we'll go from there.
And Mr. Raymond,
Raymond,
Yes, Michael.
this is Michael. Dr. Van had mentioned that maybe we could make a mix of this where we have to meet persons on rules and regs. And, that's going to take some work. And then we can come back on electronic media to approve. And I like that mix.
Michael, we can't hear. You're breaking up.
I know we're not sharp on this.
I'm sorry, Michael. We couldn't understand what you were saying.
Mike, have you tried just getting on your phone and not your computer?
I am. Okay, just a second.
in the meantime,
go,
Mr.
Mike.
I
Raymond,
don't know if
Mr. Raymond,
Yes, sir, Doctor.
okay, there may be a phone for audio. I don't have that number. Raymond,
Look at the bottom.
Can y'all hear
Raymond,
Mike right
can
now?
you hear me?
there, because he has 2 audios, there's going to be an echo. So if he's going to use the phone audio, he needs to disable his mic on his computer and the speakers on his computer.
Mike, you have to turn your speaker off on your computer if you're gonna use your phone.
I did. Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Can y'all hear Mike now?
yes.
Yes.
Yes, they can hear you. Go ahead, Mike.
All right. Real quick. I agree with Dr. Van. Maybe we can make.
Did he go off? He does good when he's talking to me, and then hold on, let me get him back on. Maybe he's working off of mine.
It's an argument for meeting in person right here.
Well, it seems like everybody else is working fine. We may have to work with Mike and his technology separately.
Can y'all hear Mike now?
Hello,
Go ahead
Mike.
and talk,
Yeah.
go ahead and talk, Mike.
All right. I'm in agreement with Dr. Van. I think we could make this work with rules and regs. I do think we need to meet together face to face to get the representation and the information together. And then we could meet electronically to approve.
Okay, did y'all hear Mike?
That's it.
Yeah.
Okay, Mike, just stay on the phone. Oh, he hung up. All right,
No,
all right, so Dr. Van, did you have another comment you wanted to make? I'm sorry, sir.
No, I just wanted to make it clear that we can do this without having a public meeting. And if you want, I can meet with the various representatives and help them along with their areas and the concerns. and I can give that feedback to the committee or to the other two members that wherever you assign. The other thing I need you to understand is that all of our committees have multiple levels of involvement. Some are administrators in in labs. For example, in clinical lab, we have administrators, we have instructors in schools, we have lab personnel at work that are supervisors in hospitals and that kind of thing. Likewise, for respiratory therapy, like you do, we have them for OT. We have broad ranges of representation for multiple groups. And I think that's why I think the pattern that the OTs have chosen has been the most successful. And what I will tell you they are doing to elicit a more clear operational modality is they have an educator and an administrator. And they are the chairman and the vice chairman. They take a section, put together their recommendations. When they meet electronically, they devote an hour to an hour and a half, usually at once a month rather, on a Friday. And they go through that section with the rest of the broad representation of the various aspects of OT, whether it be OT, OTA, and OT administration. And they decide what they want it to be. And then they move to the next section the next month. Now, I will tell you, as Dina alluded to, they had to plan this out and get it started. And so we just like you would say, we got to get this on our schedule in advance. And they did that. And so they freed up one day a month for the last 7 or 8 months and got it done. And they are about to finish. So again, there are lots of options. I want to tell you about them all. I want you to recognize that you are not unique in your desire to have broad representation. There are ways of doing it. We want to make you all happy as we can, recognizing the fact that we've got to get the board approval on this, to have in-person meetings on a regular basis, or one in-person meeting that may take all day on a Monday. But that's fine with me. I'll be happy to put it to the board. And I just need you to give me a formal vote on exactly what you wanted me to ask them. And I will make sure they get asked at Monday's meeting.
So what they're doing is they're expecting 2 people to devote their time to go over a section, then take that to the rest of the people and go over it with them. So those 2 people are putting in double time for each section that they're going over. So besides the 4 meetings a month, those 2 people, whoever they are meeting more on the side than just those 4 meetings.
It's actually the president and the vice president, and it was their request and choice because they have a very strong mission to want to make this comprehensive top to toe resolution of a revision of the rules by the end of the year. That was their desire, request, and of course, that's what they've been doing.
Sure, and that's fine. Our desire was to have this done already because we did it already, and it went to a standstill and never did get. It never went forward. The last time we sat together and did all of this work. So our desire is to get it done in much less than a year. I mean, we in the past didn't take nearly that kind of time by sitting together as a group, discussing each section and each person putting their input in right then and there, with Beth at her computer, scratching out, underlining. And once we got through, it was done. It didn't take us months and months and months to do it. So to me, that's my goal, to get it done, not to take 8 months to do it.
Just give me the motion and I'll get it to the board. I promise you.
Yeah, I think, we can move forward. Would someone like to present a motion to Dr. Van?
I move that we be allowed to meet as a group of respiratory therapists to address our rules and regulation revision. In-person meetings.
All in-person meetings or just one per year?
That's what, no, just one time.
That's why I want to make sure I get it right.
Now,
But it'll take more than one day.
yes, that was what I was going to say. We had, last time we did it, I think we met in Baton Rouge, didn't we?
We met in
No,
New
we met in
Orleans,
New
we met on a Saturday, on a Friday at lunchtime of 11 or 12, and then we ended up right after lunch on Saturday.
Okay.
So we can do one of two things.
Mhm.
We can do it Monday and Tuesday. We can do it all day Monday. We can do it all day Tuesday. We can do it Tuesday and Wednesday. We can do it Thursday and Friday. I can do it Friday and Monday, but I don't think I can get them to buy into a Saturday overtime for security and everything else that would require.
And I think we agree with that. We understand that.
Yeah.
I think I think one day, if we can just, given the challenges of getting everybody in the first place, in the same place in the first place, having to getting it to knock it out in one day might be the best move. I think that, how do y'all feel about that? So having a whole day to just take care of everything that needs to be taken care of.
I
Any
agree,
extra-
Doctor.
Yeah, any other extra day makes it more of an inconvenience. And since I think we're all accepting that it's an inconvenience that has to be convenient, so the tighter the time period, which is a whole day, if we say we're dedicating this day to getting this taken care of, then we all know what that day is about, and we go about and take care of business.
Any other discussion?
Yeah, again, making this motion, and everything, if Dr. Collada is gonna go before the LSBME board, and again, I'm just thinking both sides of the spectrum here, and designate a day to come in and do this, just something to think about. I want to give us a little wiggle room, for instance, that if we do this in December and we think we have it done, and we've got to go back to the drawing board after it goes through legal and after it goes to the population for public comment, that we don't limit ourselves, that we're meeting one time now and we shall never meet again until these have to be done again. I hate the limitation of saying it is a one and done meeting. And I just caution us, again, I'm not saying we need to meet in person 4 times a year. We only meet 4 times a year, but I caution us that we don't do he's gonna go before the board and it's a one and done meeting. That's just my opinion, but that's my part of the discussion.
And just to be clear, so you will know how this works, whatever you all decide as what you want in the rules, Pat then puts it into APA language. That goes to the board. There's an opportunity for you all to appear at that board meeting to make support for the document. Other people can appear and make a lack of support for that document, for lack of a better term. Nonetheless, the board then decides what it will send to the rulemaking process. Then once that starts, there will be a public hearing that everybody will be noticed and everyone can attend. And again, if you attend those meetings, they're not meetings of the advisory committee. You're there as members of the public and concerned members of the public and members of the advisory committee. Then it goes to if everybody agrees, it goes back to the board and the board makes whatever changes they see fit. And then it's published. And then it has an opportunity for legislative oversight. If somebody really thinks very strongly about what we're doing is wrong, they can go to a member of the House Health and Welfare or Senate Health and Welfare Committee and ask for an oversight hearing. Whether it gets had or not is up to them. And if they have the hearing, that's another opportunity for public comment and possible change. And in the meantime, we will have also sent it through the Attorney General's office to make sure that there's no antitrust activity in those rules, because we don't want to have the board in danger of being guilty or charged with antitrust. So again, it's a long process. We will get it done. But the first thing is, you all have to have your meeting to say what you wanted to say. And I'm happy to schedule it any day you want. You just need to tell me, okay? But I want the minute, you want at least, and maybe I'll clarify the motion. At least one in-person meeting lasting a full day to address changes in the rules for OT, respiratory therapy, excuse me. And that will be, it would be an in-person meeting, would have to pay for the cost of travel and rooms. Is everybody comfortable with that?
And an extra day of extra night of room. They need to.
Why an extra night of
let's
room?
just say, I'm just sitting here thinking, if we have to do it Monday through Friday, those of us that live far away are going to have to drive in on Sunday, meet all day Monday. Maybe we could then have our meeting, change our meeting from Monday to Tuesday that week, our regular committee meeting. But they're still going to need to pay Sunday night and Monday night if we do it that way.
I don't think the meeting is over, and I don't think I can pay for a night after the meeting. I can.
Now I'm talking about you have your regular advisory committee meeting the next Tuesday instead of Monday at 9 o'clock. Have it on Tuesday at 9 o'clock. And that way you don't have to pay for a separate meeting down the road. Is 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. You either pay 2 nights for this, or you pay 1 night now, and then you got to still pay for the other 4 meetings.
But
a
you
year.
don't, because they're not in person.
The other 4 meetings will likely not be in person.
Right, that's true. So anyway.
All right, is there any further discussion on this? Is everybody in agreement how Dr. Van just presented what we are requesting?
Let me repeat, at least one full day meeting in person, at least one full day meeting in person to address the review of rules and regulations for the RTs.
All right, I got it.
Is everybody in favor of that? Mike Nolan has responded yes in the chat. All in agreement?
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain?
Reluctantly, aye.
Okay, the motion carries.
Okay, just be aware the chat doesn't count as a vote. It has to be a voice vote, but you still fine.
Okay, thank you. All righty, let's move on.
Yes. 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 Yes.
We got
We
you,
got
Mike.
it, Mike. We got it, Mike.
Excuse me. Still on the old business, a follow-up on board opinions. Do we have anything that the board that we have sent to them? The last couple of meetings, I think everything is pretty much went through.
Yes.
Do we have?
Yes, without any problem.
Okay.
Now, we do have a question this time, I think, that we need to talk about. Let's see. Yeah. No, let's see. Just so you'll know, we had a request about paying the students.
Yeah, that's coming up.
Okay. All right.
That's going to be on the scope of practice of the
Okay.
RT student and the new business.
All right.
All right. Follow up on the next on the agenda is follow on the old business. Follow up on committee appointments. Last I heard from boards and commission, they did send out for a respiratory therapist. I think they kicked one. I don't know if that individual has submitted all his paperwork back. I haven't heard anything. Or the public person. Dr. Collada, have y'all heard anything on those
Nothing from
appointments?
boards, nothing from boards and commissions. No, sir.
Okay. Is there any other old business that anybody would like to bring up at this time? Is there any public comment at this time, Dr. Collada?
No, sir, there is not.
All right, we can move on to new business, licensing personnel, Phyllis Johnson and Priscilla Bartholomew. Do they have anything that they'd like to present to the committee?
Nothing other than an executive session.
Okay. We went over item 2, Senate Bill 201, I think in length. We can move on to item 3, scope of practice, the IV initiation. And that was, you should have an email in your packet. It was from Eula Verrett, and it's dated August 24th, 2023. Can you bring that one up, Doctor?
I'm trying to find it. Here we go. I'll need to shrink that just a bit. Can y'all see that?
No,
I'm sorry, I did not hear you.
no,
Okay, then let's see what I can do to make it a little bit bigger. Can you see that?
yes.
Okay.
Okay, we have a question, question that was sent in. It says, Dr. Collada, in a procedure room during a procedure, it is in the respiratory therapist scope of practice to start an IV. During cardiac event life measures on a patient, it is in the scope of practice of a respiratory therapist to start an IV as long as the respiratory therapist has current certification, standing in advanced cardiac life support. We would greatly appreciate the Respiratory Advisory Board to give us insight if it is within the scope of practice of a respiratory therapist to initiate an IV during a rapid response on a patient in the hopes of preventing a code situation on a patient. We would appreciate discussion and a decision of this matter during the next advisory council meeting on 9/18. Kindest regard, Dr. Zima and Eula Verrett.
Raymond, I went back to our licensure rules and regulations, and L does cover us for starting IVs, and it's only for fluid quote administration. And again, I don't serve on a rapid response team, but a lot of them are getting the calls because of low pressure, low blood pressure, low saturations, this, that, and the other. And then 5 up underneath L says pressure, special procedure area. And I think this is one of those areas. And let me go back and say, and E talks about the cardiac life support. And I think this is one of those areas we have not discussed respiratory therapists being on a rapid response team, and that when they're called on this rapid response team, it's usually them and a nurse, and they are highly thought of to be a part of the team. And again, it doesn't say rapid response team in our rules and regs because that's new. My consensus is if it's under the direct purview of a physician, nurse practitioner, or licensed PA, they should be able to put the IV in. Didn't say anything about pushing dopamine or anything like that to get blood pressure up, but they could get an IV going and run the fluids.
Any other comments, discussions?
I agree.
I
If you can
I
start.
agree with Diane.
You can start an IV in a special, during a special procedure. Why would they not be able to start one in a life-saving measure?
Any other discussion?
I'd like a little
Doc-
clarification.
Yeah.
They can start the IV, run the fluids, but not push medications.
Dr. Collada, the only way they could push the medication if they then for some reason go in a full-blown code and then they're covered up underneath E that says in the event of advanced cardiac life support or neonatal or pediatric, again, physician has to be standing there. They cannot do without a licensed physician, nurse practitioner, or PA, they can't push drugs.
Good enough. That's all I want to clarify as I put this in there.
Yeah, and I can add some clarification here because this is actually from my clinic. Miss Eula here is from my clinic. I don't know if this is this conflicting?
No.
Am I okay? Okay. So the case was so that in our clinic, because the majority of our clinic staff is our respiratory therapists, and we just wanted to be sure that in the case of ACLS, that they would be able to do these things under those guidelines. So that's where that came from.
Would you tell us the kind of procedures you'll be routinely starting IVs on?
Routinely starting IVs in the clinic, I can't think of any off the top of my head. So, but we do ABGs, we do all the standard stuff for the clinic, but otherwise, no routine IV starting in the clinic. It's just in the case of a rapid response, if we had to do something that they were allowed to do so. Yeah.
Any other comments, Dr. Collada, before we vote on this?
No, I just want to get it straight. So I want to get the language.
All righty, so
Need a
is there
motion.
Need a motion on the floor to approve respiratory therapists starting an IV during a rapid response event.
A motion, accept.
Motion by Sheila, do we have a second?
Second.
Got a second by Beth. Is there any further discussion?
Can we hear the
All in-
motion exactly?
I'll read and let me know how this, make sure I say this right. Respiratory care can start an IV in the role of rapid care response for a patient who is or just leave it, a respiratory care can start an IV in the role of a rapid response
When needed for life-threatening emergencies. How's that?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
All right, so now when we say anybody that's licensed or just licensed respiratory therapists?
Mhm.
This should be any licensed respiratory therapist. Now, again, let me make this statement for Dr. Hugo here. If I am working in his clinic, okay, and this patient goes to circle the drain, and it's me, him, and a nurse, and the nurse says, well, I've only been practicing a week. I don't think you want me starting this IV. Dr. Hugo, you better get ready, because if I do not feel qualified for this, I am not going to step up to the plate. It will still be up to the institution to make sure their personnel are trained for those areas that they are asking them to do. That would be the same in a code situation.
Absolutely.
if I am not ACLS certified, I'm not gonna jump up and start pushing drugs. I will do your chest compressions and I will breathe for the patient. But I think the thing we've always said is if this is out there, and again, any department head or clinic director worth their weight and salt are going to make sure when they put this policy in their manual that their employees are trained to do this scope. Our licensure law says we can put in an IV, but Diana Marandino's not going to do it until she gets trained.
Okay, so
Okay.
let me read what I think the motion says, and y'all can correct me. Licensed respiratory therapists can start IVs in the role of rapid response care when needed for life-threatening emergencies, when trained by and privileged by the institution.
Yeah, I think that's a fair statement, and that also puts the onus on the institution to ensure that they are training our therapists to do so. I agree with you. I think in my role, I never want anyone to do anything they're uncomfortable doing, and I'm prepared for that. I think on a day-to-day basis, and that's okay. That's more than fine. So I completely agree with you. I wholeheartedly agree with you.
All right, well, that will we use to present to the board. I don't know if it's going to get on this agenda, but it'll get for the October agenda for sure. I'll try and get it on this one.
Is everyone in favor of that motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Mike, go ahead and say, Mike, talk. All righty, motion carries. We'll move on to scope of practice RT student. I'm not going to read this big long thing. Did everyone get a chance to look at it? This individual, obviously, she listened at our last board meeting. She was on the stream, and she sent me this email after our last meeting. It goes back to hiring students and compensating them to do respiratory care.
So, Raymond, the question I have, because this came up at our last meeting, were you or Sheila able to corner, and I say corner because I know he's busy, Dr. Tom Smalling in regards to their statement in COARC Standards 5.09 that students cannot receive remuneration for services?
No, Tom Smalling or his representative, they were going by the time we got there.
Yeah.
And, so again, does that standard refer to clinical hours?
Well, and the other thing I'm going to go back to and say here, I'm trying to remember, Miss Jackson is from Idaho, or was she from Ohio?
Oh, Julie Jackson?
Yeah.
Julie is from,
Julie's from Iowa.
yeah.
Okay, close to Ohio. The other piece that we did say was, according to the way our rules and regulations are written, students could not receive pay for the things that she was talking about, where she said they're allowed to perform tests that they have finished mastering through their coursework outside of caring for critical patients, which sounds like floor care. So it would be like our students in December of their first fall semester have completed a floor care rotation. They've completed, prior to going to floor care, their checkoffs and have met the standards for performing that care, okay? And she's saying that once they've mastered that, they would be cleared. I think it goes back to how the schools look at their mastery. Because yes, maybe you did a handheld neb out on the floor or one BiPAP out on the floor. And you're gonna have a lot more BiPAP, CPAP setups that come from those that were in the ICU and those that have been transferred to the floor and set up out on the floor to keep them out of the ICU because we don't have an ICU bed for them. I really want to know where COARC stands on this, because to the best of my knowledge, nothing in our rules and regulations says after you are considered a master at this level, you're free to do this and work for others. So,
The
I
rules
agree
simply
with-
say they cannot be paid for training.
right. And for me, Dr. Collada, and again, some of my students are not gonna like this, and there may be physicians that don't like this. And that is a handheld neb. I can train an 8-year-old to do a handheld neb. It's the assessment piece that comes with it. And if you're lucky and you give the handheld neb and the patient's wheezing clears, then you're good. But if you give the handheld neb and the person then deteriorates, and you've never seen this before, because I was working with a staff person who said, I think the person ought to be transferred out of PICU. Well, they closed down. They didn't open up. And the staff person said, I don't hear wheezing. They're better. No, they're not better. They're worse. So until you got a license to practice and somebody is responsible, because I'm telling you, the people, the educators aren't going to be at that bedside with these people. And when things go south, part of me just sees the institution going, well, you said that they were cleared and they were masters at this. I'm still learning after 39 years of therapy. So I don't like it. Not until COARC says you can get paid to train on the job. And then maybe we go back and look at what we have written.
And just so everybody gets a clear historical perspective and nobody fails to recognize the facts, during the COVID emergency, we did allow this because of the critical need for respiratory therapy people in our hospitals during the crisis. But as soon as that emergency was lifted, that was no longer allowed.
And Dr. Van, we only did that because COARC gave us clearance.
Right.
That's the only way we were able to do it, is they said at this time 5.09 will not be, put into play. And so they basically put it on hold too for the COVID crisis.
Well, at this point, I don't think it would be legal for us to allow these students to perform respiratory care without a license, because again, Diane, as you said, they've been taught how to give a neb and do certain things, but the full assessment, if they have an adverse reaction or if they start going into other compromising situations. So that is my stance on that. Dr. Collada, is there any other committees that allow students to function in a therapist or technician role and be compensated
No,
if
sir.
they're not finished school?
No, sir. Not that I'm aware of. I can recall.
So, Doctor, do we have to give an official response to Ms. Stelling?
We'll draft a letter, and Pat and I will draft a letter and send it out on behalf. We'll get it approved by the board and then send it out.
Is everyone in agreement with that? Does anybody have a difference in opinion?
And I would just say that when you draft the letter, they can perform cleaning equipment. They can perform stocking units. They can go be a shadow to run and get stuff for a therapist that may need a therapist, but they cannot practice any form of respiratory care.
Can they be Are you allowing them to be paid for that?
Yeah, they
Is
used
that-
to be.
Well, now,
They,
what is that function? What is that function called? So we can clarify it, because I can't say a runner. I can't say respiratory therapy assistant. So what do we call that?
we used to call it at LSU a student worker. Most of the time, and again, each institution would call it what they wanted to, but we had a, before LSU, this is prior to the Oshner's binding, they had to be enrolled in a respiratory care program or another healthcare program, because there were nurses that did this too. And so they could go and retrieve a ventilator out of the unit, bring it down to the department and clean it up, strip it down, set it back up and run it through a pre-test before it goes on the patient.
But this is not part of their training.
No.
No, I mean,
Okay.
well, I guess what you're saying, I mean, we teach all of our students how to manage ventilators and clean equipment and this, that, and the other.
What we don't want to do is put an exception in there that then turns the student into indentured servitude.
Well, that and that, that make it clear that this is over and above their hours and whatever else they have to do to get credit for being trained. This is just, like me working in the law library after class to pay my bills. It's not, I didn't get any course credit for
Yeah,
that.
there's no course
Correct.
credit. There's no course credit. And what she's saying and what we heard the last time was, not always does it work to their benefit, but it gives the institution a little bit of a leg up to recruit that student if they like them. And there's the other thing, if the student doesn't do well, they're not going to get offered a job, but it offered them a little bit of insight into the student and their ability to show up on time and do what they were assigned. Doesn't do anything with clinical competency, doesn't do anything with passing boards or getting a license.
Okay, so the rule, maybe I get the language right, because we want to make sure we get what you want. Rules do not allow students being paid for training or other work that is considered to be part of accredited coursework.
Are part of our license. And so it has nothing to do about coursework. They can't perform anything that we have gotten on our license.
Again, this is not about what they're doing. This is about paying students. So the rules do not allow students being paid for training or other work that is considered to be part of accredited coursework. So if they're teaching them to set up a machine and test a machine, that's part of coursework that can't be paid for it.
Mm-mm. I see what you're trying to say, but I don't think that's the way to.
Again, Dina, you don't want to set these kids up to be indentured servants.
Well, no. I get that. You don't want them to be set up for indentured service. And the institution that does that, guess what? Student ain't going to work for them. Prior to all of this, and CLIA, I guess CLIA was the one that made the changes.
But wait a minute, this is not about CLIA.
No.
This is about paying students.
It's about paying students. But what I'm getting ready to tell you, listen very closely. Our students used to go work as blood gas techs. They stuck those patients, they ran those values, they did quality control on those machines. Even though our licensure laws said you had to be trained to do that, but you didn't have to necessarily be a trained RT, they were able to do that until CLIA came in and shut that down. There once was a time, and there's probably still some out there, these students are paid to do EKGs. They go in there, they slap the leads on them, they run the EKG, and they hand that to the physician. Do I train my students to do EKGs? You bet I do. Does that mean that a student worker could not do an EKG, I'm gonna tell you no, because we have those telemetry techs out there that have much less training than what my students have. So what I'm saying is, and I understand indentured students, back to Dr. Wilton, she's going to go work in the Noel Library to get money, and she's going to be paid a student worker job. She should not be working over 20 hours a week, if that's what they're calling it. But if they have her on her feet running for 8 hours, she's probably not going to stay in that job very long. She's going to say, this is not what I signed up for.
But that is not part of the coursework. That is extra work done to earn money outside of the academic institution. Outside of the accredited coursework.
Well, yes and no, because for part of being.
Okay, but wait, stop, Dina. Let's say you have a student that comes in and her shift as a student starts at 9 and ends at 4.
Mhm.
You can't say from 10:30 to 11:30, you go move these machines around and we're going to pay you for 10:30 to 11:30. That's not the coursework definition. We're saying you do from 9 to 4, your coursework, and then you go and come back and work for 2 hours from 4 to 6 for your earning money.
Yeah, I see. No, I see what you're saying. They can't be on my time clock and their time clock at the same
That's what, and
time.
that's why I'm saying they're not allowed to be training or for other work that is considered to be part of accredited coursework. So when they're not doing their coursework, they can get paid.
Okay, I got it.
All right.
Could we add maybe one more word in there to clarify for those people out there so they're not so confused? Could we add clinical in there? Because that's when they're getting them. During their clinical hours, they're wanting them to be paid.
That's
Okay,
true.
Course.
so then we can
course
say
and clinical work.
considered to be part of accredited clinical coursework.
Yeah.
All right, that's fine with me. I love it. I love clarifying it.
Is everyone in favor of that motion? Aye. Anyone opposed?
I think I need to hear the motion again. There's been so much talk about it.
And I need to know, can we put Dr. Van down as making the motion? Because I'm looking for my first and second down here, because I do
Yeah.
record that.
No, I can't make the motion. The motion, I understand it to read, is that rules do not allow students being paid for training or other work that is considered to be part of accredited clinical coursework.
All right, I will make that motion. Who's going to second it?
I will.
Thank you, Brett.
seconds it. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank y'all for that discussion.
And there's no public comment at this time, sir.
Thank you. All right, our next meeting coming up is December the 4th, our regular scheduled meeting. Is there any other new business that anybody would like to discuss? And before, let's see, I think we have something for executive session.
Yes.
I make a
Sure.
motion that we go into executive session.
Do I have a second?
All right,
Sheila, second. All in favor?
Uh,
all right, let Olivia get us out of into executive session and out of public session, and we'll be ready to go. Give us a few minutes for Olivia to do that.
think we're here.
Everyone here?
Yep.
All right, Diana, can you read the motion, please?
All right. I'd like to make the motion that contact number 286316 be granted an unrestricted RT license to practice in Louisiana.
Have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
A second.
Do I have seconds? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion passes.
Aye.
Dr. Van, is there any public comment?
There are no public comments at this time, sir.
All right, is there anything else anybody would like to say before we adjourn?
Well, I want to say thank you for all your help today. Appreciate all you've done, and I'll take your messages to the board.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody have a great week.
All right.
Bye-bye.
And enjoy the weather.
Pat, hang on.